This is the Night Bird, Alison Steele, for the United States Army Reserve, and our guest today is Rick Wakeman. And we're listening to Rick's fantastic new album, Journey to the Center of the Earth, based on the Jules Verne story. Rick Wakeman, and the first two cuts from the album, Journey to the Center of the Earth, the introduction and the journey. And I am really delighted to have Rick Wakeman in the studio. Welcome, Rick.
Hello.
This is your first visit now since this album is out, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
It's probably the most exciting piece of music that we've heard in ages, and everyone here is just so excited about it, but they're even more excited about the big question in America now is what is happening with Rick Wakeman and Yes.
Well, I actually left the band about 3 weeks ago, which was shortly after we finished the European tour, which followed the American tour. And I'm now mainly working on bringing the journey as a concert to various places around the world. We're starting with an English tour in September, and when that finishes, coming straight over here and doing a complete American tour using provincial orchestras, but bringing the choir and the group and basically the same nucleus of people with us.
Fantastic. How many people will that be, Rick?
It's about it'll be about 110 people on the road, and picking up about a symphony orchestra in different cities, which will be about 101 pieces.
How can a tour like that possibly, I mean, this might be too personal a question, but it's the first thing I think about. How can a tour like that possibly make any money?
Well, it won't. It can't, I don't think. But obviously, you don't look upon it as losing money or making money, because you hopefully there to promote your music and bring people towards your music, and which will hopefully in the long run sell records. So you almost use the record sales to subsidise a project like that, because it would be destructive if you just went and did if I just say brought a group over and used a very small orchestra and a very small choir and did it sort of on a lot smaller basis.
You could never recreate the sound.
No, it wouldn't help the music, and it would be destructive to the music, and you'd lose all round in the long run then.
How long did it take you to write Journey to the Center of the Earth?
Over a period of 18 months, really, which was in between sort of Yes tours, in between sort of breaks that we had in between recording.
How long did it take you to write the Six Wives of Henry VIII? That was a phenomenal album, too.
That was 11 months in between. Started in November 71 on that and finished October 72.
Fantastic. Have you written a lot of the material for Yes, too?
No, very little. John was the main writer of the actual songs, and we all had a sort of an equal part in sort of the arrangement and the orchestration of the music, which, even though we didn't write any songs, there's sort of just as much sort of music on the album as there is sort of songs.
Rick, I want to take a moment here for some words about Army Reserve. Who doesn't need more money these days? Agree? Well, then try this idea on for size. Monthly meetings in the Army Reserve mean a steady, extra income. Money to spend on a vacation for the family or a second car. Money to save for a son's college education. Money to salt away for a comfortable retirement. You attend 4 4-hour sessions a month in the reserve, and you also spend 2 weeks each summer at camp. If long-range success is just as important to you as instant money, you can keep moving ahead in the reserve by earning promotions. They'll even send you to a school to learn a skill that can be applied to a civilian career. So you can see that the reserve has a lot of good deals going. So get going with the reserve. That's the Army Reserve. It pays to go to meetings.
It pays, it pays. It pays to go to meetings. It pays, it pays. It pays to go to meetings. It pays.
This is the Night Bird, Alison Steele, for the United States Army Reserve, and our guest today is Rick Wakeman. And from his album, Journey to the Center of the Earth, here is The Battle. That's The Battle from Rick Wakeman's Journey to the Center of the Earth, and we're visiting with Rick Wakeman in the studio today. This is rather a difficult album to play on this particular program. I'm sure you know by now that it is a narrative album. And Rick, how did you happen to choose the Jules Verne story as the basis for an album, Rick?
Well, I like doing things to concept because it's easier to bring out the best in music to write to an already proven theme. It's interesting to note the majority of albums that come out, the sort of the titles and the themes that run throughout the album are often very weak, or the titles have actually got nothing to do with the music themselves, which made me think that perhaps a musician finds it very difficult to write for the right thing. So I felt that if I pricked on proven concepts and nice stories and things that contained a lot of colour to write for, that it would bring the best out in my music. And I read a lot of books, and I've always been interested in 19th century science fiction, H.G. Wells, Jules Verne type science fiction. And Jules Verne I like the best because he was more of a science fiction prophet.
Yes.
Because 90% of the things he wrote actually came true.
Yes.
And this book is the only one that he wrote that hasn't been proven, that it's perhaps the only sort of science fiction story that he actually wrote, a science fiction novel. There's quite a lot of it that could actually be proven, such as that there could quite possibly be links between some of the volcanoes in forms of caves. And the whole book was written so colourfully to write. I mean, it was a joy to write for, with things like the battle, with the descriptions of the sea, of the forests.
It's fascinating, just fascinating. We're going to hear another cut from Journey to the Center of the Earth. This is The Storm. That's The Storm from Rick Wakeman's Journey to the Center of the Earth, and as I said before, unfortunately we cannot play the whole album. How did you happen to pick David Hemmings to do the narration, Rick?
That basically came about by accident, because the original idea we had, which was about a year ago, or a year before we did the album, was to use Richard Harris. He decided to go and get married and vanish off to the Bahamas or something, and because we'd never even thought clearly about choosing a narrator, because somebody suggested Richard Harris in the first place, and everybody stuck to it, never even thought about anything else. And then suddenly, when he couldn't do it, we were in sort of a real spot, because we hadn't really sort of thought about the situation. And Lou Reisner said, well, what about David Hemmings? And it's really funny, we thought, well, that should have been the first choice. That's who we should have had in the first place.
Yes, he's got a marvellous voice.
And we called him up, and he was really keen, and he put in a tremendous amount of work. I wrote all the narrations and gave them to him, and he changed a few odd little things here and there that he said were better to speak, easier to put over. He showed an incredible amount of interest, came along to lots of the mixes, and he was absolutely tremendous guy.
Oh, it's such a fascinating sound. I mean, he's got such a marvelous voice, and of course, with your music for a background, it just makes the album one of the most fascinating pieces of music that's come out in our rock world for a long time. We're going to take a moment here for a word from Army Reserve, Rick.
Get it together, together, not alone. Get it together, together, till you're on your own. Don't you know it's day to go to meeting time for the good things you deserve? Don't you know it pays to go to meetings in the Army Reserve?
The Army Reserve. It pays in a lot of ways. You're paid for every meeting and each 2-week summer camp you attend. Extra money you can use in a lot of ways. And you get the chance to further your present skills or learn new ones. A chance that can really pay off in your civilian career.
It pays, it pays. It pays to go to meetings. It pays, it pays. It pays to go to meetings. It pays.
And now I think we have time to hear The Forest from Journey to the Center of the Earth. Rick Wakeman. We're listening to Rick Wakeman from Journey to the Center of the Earth, The Forest. Rick, thank you so much for visiting with us today.
Thanks very much indeed, thank you.
Rick Wakeman, and this is the Nightbird, Alison Steele, reminding you that it pays to go to meetings in the Army Reserve.